Hi, good morning. This is Mr. Cranier. We're working on benchmark number 27. This is the second part of benchmark 27. This is about rhombus, rhombi, and squares. So what we're going to go ahead and work on is that in the last lesson we determined whether the quadrilaterals were parallelograms and or rectangles. And today we're going to go ahead and recognize and apply the properties of rhombi and squares. And we're going to go ahead and decide whether the quadrilaterals are rectangles, rhombuses, or squares. First theorem for diagonals of a rhombus, we want to go ahead and state this really clearly. If a parallelogram is a rhombus, now you need to know some of the basic terminology for rhombus. One, a rhombus has all equal sides. So you got to take that in consideration. All right, so if a parallelogram is a rhombus, then the diagonals are going to be perpendicular, meaning when you do a diagonal from A to C and B to D, the angle here has to be 90 degrees. All right, if you have any questions with this first theorem, let me know, please. Thank you. All right, for our second theorem for diagonals of a rhombus, so if the parallelogram is a rhombus, meaning again all sides are the same, diagonals form a 90-degree angle, right? Then each diagonal bisects the angle. So just be really careful on this. Angle 5 will be the same thing as angle 6, and so forth and so on. Again, if you have any questions on this particular property, let me know. Thank you. Example number 1, we're using properties of a rhombus. We're going to go ahead and state this. For example A, the diagonals of a rhombus, W, X, Y, Z, they intersect at V. If the measure of WZX is 39.5 degrees, we want to find the measure of angle ZYX. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to plug in the information that's given. I'd love for you guys to do the same thing. So let's see, WZX. So this angle is given. This is going to be 39.5. I know that when diagonals bisect at a particular vertex, I know that this is also going to be 39.5. I also know that this is going to be the diagonals and they bisect. This is also going to form 90-degree angles. So what they're asking for is find the measure of ZYX. So let's say ZYX. So we want to figure out what this angle is. So now what I want to do here is the strategy is this angle, 39.5 and 39.5, I want to add those up. That's going to give me altogether, it's going to give me, let's see, 79 degrees. I know that this angle plus this angle, they are consecutive angles. They have to equal 180. So this is how my setup is going to look like. 79 plus this angle, I'm just going to name this X, is going to equal 180. I'm going to subtract 79 from 180, and I'm going to get angle 101. That's going to be the measure of ZYX. So that's going to be 101. Any questions? Feel free. Give me. You can let me know in class. You can email it to me, or you can post it on Linuet. All right. So I'll talk to you later. Bye. Number 1. This is benchmark 27B on rhombuses and squares. we're going to use the properties of a rhombus. All right. Letter B, algebra, the diagonals of a rhombus, W, X, Y, Z, they intersect at V if WX equals 8x minus 5 and WZ is 6x plus 3. We want to find X. So some things that we know about a rhombus. One, we know all the sides have to be the same. And we know that WX is 8x minus 5. We also know that WZ is 6x plus 3. So this is a really easy setup. We're going to go ahead and set the equation up. We're going to say 8x minus 5, 6x plus 3. We're going to set those two up. We're going to solve for x. I'm minusing 6x from both sides. And I'm going to add 5 on both sides. And then I'm going to divide both of them by 2. So my x equals 4. In this case, that's all they want us to do is to find x. Looks pretty good. Let me know if you have any questions on the setup and how to solve it. See you later. Bye. Okay, this question is for you. This is the guided practice for the first example. ABCD is a rhombus. You want to find the measure of CDB if ABC is 126. All right, remember the properties of a rhombus to solve this. Good luck. Okay, this is letter B. ABC is a rhombus. If BC is 4x minus 5 and CD is 2x plus 7, you want to go ahead and find the variable x. All right. Again, remember the properties of a rhombus, and good luck on solving this question. A great slide right here. We're talking about parallelograms. We're talking about rectangles, rhombi, and squares. Now, a rectangle, they have to have 4 right angles. And for a rhombus, they have to have 4 sides. When you combine the two, you get a square. So keep that in mind as we are working this out. All the properties of rectangles hold true, and all the properties of a rhombus also hold true for a parallelogram. So again, great slide. Come back to it if you need to. For this particular theorem on squares, I want to highlight this theorem right here, 620. Now, in order to know the condition of a square, you have to know that if a quadrilateral satisfies a rectangle and a rhombus, then it's a square. So it has to satisfy everything that has a rectangle and everything that has a rhombus. So you got to know about the diagonals. For a rectangle, they have to be congruent. You also have to know about the diagonals for a rhombus, that they when they bisect, it forms a 90-degree angle, and then it cuts the angle in two. So if it satisfies everything, it's a square. Let me know if you have any questions on this, and hopefully I can clear up some of the confusion. All right. Example number 3. This is for benchmark 27, part B. We're going to use the conditions of a rhombi and a square. So this is a question on gardening. Hector is measuring the boundary of a new garden. He wants the garden to be a square. All right. He has set each of the corner stakes 6 feet apart. What does Hector need to know to make sure that the garden is square? All right. So number 1, he needs to know if it's a parallelogram. So since the opposite sides are both 6, they're both congruent, we know it's a parallelogram. So that's a good sign. So it's all right. So let's get our parallelogram. Whoa. All right, there goes my parallel. That's number 1. Okay, 2, if the sides are congruent, we know it's a rhombus. So since all the sides are the same, so we know it's going to be a rhombus. And the third thing we want to figure out is that if it satisfies the rectangle, which means if the diagonals are congruent, then we know it's a rectangle. So if it satisfies the diagonals being congruent, then we can safely say that if these two are satisfied, it has to be a square. So this is what Hector needs to know. He needs to know if the diagonals are going to be congruent. All right, so whoa. All right, so if you have any questions, let me know. Thank you. All right, this is your guided practice for example 3. This is Sachin has a shape he knows to be a parallelogram. All 4 sides are congruent. Which information does he need to know to determine whether it is also a square? So do the best you can, and I'll get back to you on this. Bye.